The time is now 5:30, and thank you for being here tonight. I will call to order the Board of Trustees regular board meeting for August 16th. If you will please rise with us for a moment of silence and the pledges to the flags. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Item 2 on our agenda is presentations, recognitions, and awards and announcements. And Mrs. Ladd, welcome to the podium. Oh, sorry. Ms. Gainsfelder, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, President Murray. Mrs. Ladd couldn't be here tonight. I'm Anita Gamritzfelder to sub in for her. It is my honor to present to you as we celebrate Midland ISD secondary students who have attained recognition on the state and national levels for their accomplishments. I also want to thank all the parents and the friends who are here supporting these students and their accomplishments. Thanks so much for coming out to cheer and clap for them. School Board Trustees, I'd like to invite y'all to come on out, and as our students walk across the stage, offer congratulations. We'll be taking 2 pictures tonight. The first is with all of the Legacy students, and the second is with all the Midland High students. Our first group to honor tonight is from Legacy High School. The Legacy Speech and Debate team is coached by Coach Joshua Wimberley. Tonight we are presenting to you the World School Debate Competition Round of 32. The students involved were Michael Carl, Shubi Damija, Amulia Ganta, Dion Anyamazu, and Harley Pitts. Mr. Wimberley, if you'll just continue to gather everybody here, we'll continue on with the Legacy students. We also have Extemporaneous Speech, Round of 64, Tamil Adele. Congressional Debate Senate semifinalist Pranav Ganta. Pro-Con Challenge Round of 32, Pranav Ganta. If you'll remember, Pranav is the valedictorian from Legacy, and he is attending orientation for Harvard, so he can't be here tonight, but we congratulate him just the same. National Qualifier Prose and Poetry, Kylie Brooks. National Qualifier Impromptu and Contemporary, Ariel Higuereta. Impromptu and Contemporary National Qualifier, Impromptu and Extemporaneous Debate, Blake Thompson. Congratulations to all of our Legacy High School Rebels. If y'all can now please work yourselves into a group photo. Trevor's going to take your picture from the back. And look at the gentleman in the tie waving his hand. Thank you, Legacy High students. And now it is my privilege to present to you students from Midland High School. The Midland High swimming and diving coaches are Stephen Flato, Roger Zuniga, and Coach Gerhardt. They are here tonight with UIL diving state qualifier Nick Stone. Also, 3 members of the girls' 200-yard freestyle relay team state qualifiers, PJ Day, Addie Foreman, Riley Graham, Olivia Haskell, Macy Holmes, and Cameron Keller. A few of these ladies have already gone on to college. Thank you, swimmers and divers. If y'all can now move your way to the center, we'll take a group photo for Midland High. Thank you very much.
Next, under item 2 is B, PTA presentation. Ms. King, welcome to the podium. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, President Murray. I'm Allison King. I am the president of the Midland Council of PTAs. The purpose of the council is to unify and help train the local PTAs on every campus. At my first meeting with Dr. Ramsey, it became very clear what a supporter she is of the campus PTAs and the role it plays in a strong campus and strong district. And she asked if she could join all of the PTAs at once without having, contact 38 campuses and contact those individually. And I said, no, not yet, but give me some time and I'll figure it out. So here we are a couple months later, and now we have 3 Midland Council PTA levels, and this is a great way for board members, volunteers, MISD administrators, businesses, community members, parents to get involved. So the platinum level is every single campus that has a local PTA. The maroon and purple, we took all the campuses and then divided them out to create 2 smaller levels. And conveniently, that QR code is for anybody in the audience that would like to join right now. We are very excited to kick the school year off with our very first platinum member being Dr. Ramsey. So thank you so much for... I gave her certificate early so that we could speed things. Yes, you do get a certificate. I'll mail it to you, though. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Ramsey, for having us create this, because I think it'll be a great opportunity for other members to join the PTA. Last year, we had over 2,800 PTA members, which is down from 4,500 in 2019-2020 for obvious reasons, but our really big goal is to have 1 PTA member for every single student. I recognize that's going to take some time, but I think these levels are one step closer, and the Midland Council PTA is looking forward to working alongside the board and the district this year for a really fantastic year. So thank you.
Ms. King, will you
Yes.
say the level? What are my buy-ins of those levels?
So platinum is every single one. I would assume that would be what you would want.
Yes, I meant the cost. What are the dollar amounts?
$270, and then it's $135 for maroon and $135 for purple.
And where will this be posted for the public after the meeting?
It is on the MISD website, and there is a MISD PTA Council Facebook page that's open to the community, that's not private, and that's an option. And then I think it's been emailed through your communications. But we share it on the Facebook page, and then I'll ask the MISD PR group to share that too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. King, and as always, you do a great job, and we appreciate all the work and support that you put in from the council level. The time is now 5:40, and we will begin public forum We have, I believe, 4 speakers tonight, and in no particular order. Mr. Wimberley will be the first speaker, and his topic is team ranking and plan. Mr. Wimberley, welcome, and thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey, members of the board. Want to put out a special thank you for inviting us to be recognized for the work that our students did last year. We were excited to do it, and I wanted to make the announcement that the team that you met today was the 43rd year in a row that our school has sent qualifiers to the national tournament, and it is a record number of qualifiers for us. We've never before sent 10 students to the national tournament in a single year, so the goal next year is to go even higher than that. For those that are not members of our Facebook page, Rebel Speech and Debate, please come and find us, but that will give you the explanation as to where my hair went, because our team made a deal with me last year that if they could get 8 students to the national tournament, which would break the old record, that they could go ahead and shave my head. Those little snakes got 10. So they called the dead end last Friday, and in the middle of lunch, in the middle of the quad, there on campus, so that everybody could witness it, they made sure that they removed every stitch of hair that I had on my head. But that's the kind of commitment that my kids have to me and that I have to them, and that's the kind of commitment that I want to see grow throughout the district for our teams. While I'm here, I have a special announcement because the National Speech and Debate Association just released rankings today, the preseason rankings, before any of us have competed at any of the invitational tournaments. Our preseason ranking for the state of Texas, we are the 2nd strongest team ranked in the state right now. On the national level, we are currently ranked 43rd and moving our way up quickly. With the growth that we've had in our freshman campuses, we anticipate that we will break the top 25 in the nation before the end of the season. That's our goal. I'm also pleased to announce that we have brought online Midland High's team to make them competitive with the appointment of Quentin Leve on that campus, and with the appointment of a debate coach over at Young Women's Leadership Academy. We now have 31 girls signed up for Debate 1 on their side, and we are looking forward to traveling all 3 teams together as a combined MISD speech and debate team for the district to show Texas exactly how strong we can be. My goal has always been to unite us this way, and now we're starting to see the fruits of that. And it's through your support and the support of the administrations at the different campuses that we've allowed that to happen, and I want to thank you for that. Outside of that, I'm just excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to letting you guys know on a monthly basis how we're doing. Our first tournament will be in Houston. We've been invited to an invitational down at Foster Fulcher. It's a very prestigious tournament, but we'll be traveling down there August 27th through the 29th. So wish us luck and keep us in your prayers. We're going to need it. Thank you so much.
The next speaker will be Kristen Vasquez, and Ms. Vasquez's topic is supporting teachers. And I don't know if you guys in the back, if you can start the clock. If not, Ms. Joyner will keep it up here. But she was running a clock that time, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Vasquez.
Thank you. I just wanted to read an email that I received from a teacher this past week. While I love my job and what I do, it is hard to be the good teacher that I know I am when I am continuously understaffed. MISD is not fully staffed, and it's bull they are saying they are. I have many SPED kids, and while I'm highly qualified, I should not be in here alone all day without potty breaks, lunch, and even a conference. It's not these kids' fault that this happens, and I feel terrible about not being able to do all that I can to help these kids grow. I need help. We have good teachers, but MISD is going to lose them if we aren't heard. Thanks, and please keep this anonymous. So I reached out to Mr. Bailey as soon as I received this email to ask him for a staffing update, and he was kind enough to share with me that we are 99.8% fully staffed. But that really doesn't coincide with what this information that this teacher is giving me. It doesn't coincide with other teachers and parents that I'm talking to in the district that talk about their classes being more than full. It doesn't coincide with the teacher or the friend that I have on Facebook that was sharing that her son's class did not have a teacher last week.
that the students had to take their own attendance, that they were unsupervised without an adult. That actually happened 2 Fridays ago, which I'm sure most of you are pretty aware of that Friday. That was the day for the golf tournament that so many of you guys were at. I just want you to take the perspective of this teacher. So this teacher is struggling and needs help. This teacher can't take a restroom break because she doesn't have anybody safe to watch her kids. She's not getting her legally appointed duty-free lunch. She's not getting her legally appointed teacher conference. And she gets to come home and see that members of our campuses, that campus administration, that members of our support center downtown are having a golf tournament on the first week of school. I mean, what if she was one of the teachers at the campuses that didn't have air conditioning? And for anybody that's in this room that kind of like scoffs at the idea of maybe a teacher not getting to take a restroom break, I challenge them, instead of taking the day off to go to a golf tournament, maybe they should ask the day off so that they can volunteer in a special ed classroom and see what those teachers experience every day. Our teachers need support, and the scariest thing is to hear her say that she's considering not being a teacher anymore, that our teachers need help buying things for their classrooms. They shouldn't have to pay for things like chairs and desks. They shouldn't have to be doing that kind of stuff. Our teachers need support, and they have to see that from leadership. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Courtney Ratliff, and his topic is mask mandate. Mr. Ratliff, welcome to the podium.
Dr. Ramsey, Mr. Pounds, school board members, I come to you as usual talking about something that's not very popular, asking you guys to make a decision that's not very popular. Right now, our numbers here in MISD are staggering when you look at the COVID positive rates. Our students are sick, our hospitals are overwhelmed, and we've got to do something. Asking everyone to do the right thing has been kind of the answer up to this point, but asking everyone to do the right thing is how we got to this position. When we did have mask mandates in the school last year, our COVID positive rates really went down, and it led to the situation to where everyone was able to relax. But now we're in a heightened position, and I understand that it's not very popular here in Midland, Texas to go against our governor's mandates. It's not very popular to go back to a mask situation, but we have to do the right thing for our children. And that's a difficult position. Now, we've seen what's happening in some of our larger school districts here in the state of Texas, where they have made the decision that they're going to protect their students. And that's in direct opposition to the governor's mandate. Now, MISD has already demonstrated a willingness to go against the governor's mandate as we continue operation of the Midland Online Academy. That's something that's not funded by the state, according to the government, to the governor. He did not authorize funding for online schooling. However, we made the wise decision to offer that anyway. It's time for us to make a wise decision once again. I know it's not on the agenda, but I'm hoping that it's something that you will strongly reconsider. There are so many people that wanted to come and be a part of this, to speak on this particular issue, but unfortunately, they have COVID and they're not able to attend. And so we need to take these things into consideration for the betterment of our students, because it's hard to improve academic scores for kids who are not in attendance and kids who are not there because they're sick, and sick because of something that we could prevent. And if not for, and we don't necessarily need to have a mask mandate for all of the schools if we don't think that that's the answer, but we do have to look at our most vulnerable population, and those are the elementary kids. They're not eligible for vaccines, where high schoolers are. So I implore you, board, to think about this mandate and to make a wise decision on behalf of our students who are not able to make those decisions for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ratliff. The last person to speak tonight is Paul Wagner, and Mr. Wagner has chosen to speak on online learning. Mr. Wagner, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, members of the board. I want to concur with my fellow speaker before me. I come here asking you to reconsider the online learning. I'm the father of 4. I just found out this morning that my second boy had come back positive with COVID. Me and my family are fortunate enough we've been able to quarantine at a different house, and so I'm in a little bit of shock, a little bit of anger, name emotion. I've got it right now. But I'm coming to you. I'm also a mechanical engineer at Midland Memorial Hospital. I've been there over 9 years. So I've seen the COVID from its beginning until where we are today. And the hospital is as bad as it's been through this whole thing. Last Friday, we were at 75 critical COVID patients, and that was the prior day's number. Where we're at today, I could not tell you. All I can tell you is my last work day was Saturday, going through all the floors, seeing people on, being on the incubators, room after room after room. You know, that's hard enough to deal with in your workplace and keeping yourself safe. But now my second boy has come down positive, and I've got him, he's 11 years old. I have a younger one that is 7. We have been making them wear masks. I understand there's no mask mandate, but I'm also fully aware that the schools have not been able to do any kind of separation, 6-foot separation. I understand that might be nearly impossible. But you as a body have the capability to at least allow some of our students to have the online learning. My 2 boys were in that for the last year and a half, and I think we should be able to be allowed to have that choice again. But I come to you from the Midland Memorial angle because that is something that most people do not see, and I see that as a daily basis, taking care of the facility. You should try walking those halls and see what I see. You might have a little bit different opinion on what's going on right now. This Delta variant is deadly, and it's very serious. And I thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner, and our prayers will be with you and your family as you go through COVID, as it is with many of our students and teachers right now that are going through this. That concludes public forum at 5:53. The next item on the agenda is the consent. Item A, board meeting minutes. Item B, monthly financials. Item C, contracts over $100,000. Item D, competitive sealed proposal. Addendum 2, roofing replacement various facilities for 2021. I probably should add in the number CSP number 21-1030-49. Item E, request for proposal RFP number 20-34. Addendum 1, on-call fencing installation and supplies. Item F, request for proposal RFP number 20-74. Addendum 5, building maintenance, repairs and operations, equipment-related items and services. Item G, request for proposal RFP number 21-01, principal and assistant principal professional development. Item H, legacy high school orchestra out of country travel. Item I, optional flexible school day program, application for 2021-2022. And item J, personnel appointments. Board members, are there any reason why any of these items should be pulled from consent?
Mr. President, can we pull G and H?
Mr. Trischetti has asked to pull items G and H. Any others? Okay, items A, B, C, D, E, F, I, and J are deemed approved by consent. Mr. Trischetti, item G, your question, please.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm all for professional development, but this is grant funded or ESSER funded, Dr. Ramsey, that's correct? It's not?
That is correct. It's ESSER funded, and the particular one that you pulled, did go through the bid process.
I just think it's important as we expend some of those ESSER funds, we let the community know that what we're using those dollars for to really pour back into our staff and continuing ed and what we're using it for students. So I make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Marquez. Any other discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your right hand. Thank you. The item passes 7-0. Mr. Trischetti, item H, Legacy High School Orchestra.
I see Mr. Garza here. I just want to know if you need someone to carry your luggage. I mean, are you taking volunteers? No, if you don't mind coming and just giving I think it's a great opportunity and that's wonderful for our students. If you give 60 seconds on, kind of what you're doing and why this is awesome and certainly in favor, but felt that it needed to be highlighted since it involved our students.
Thank you, board members, for having me. One big reason I will tell you is obviously we have not been to travel quite a bit, and our students are given many opportunities in our ensemble, and this opportunity that we are given has happened in the past in several other places. We've taken students to London, we've taken students to Canada, and one big reason is just for the enrichment of music and travel for our students. We'll be playing with students from San Jose at a high school, local high school, and doing a very big combined concert with those students. And I feel that it's a necessity right now for music, I think, for the world, and a necessity for our students to experience those things and make some really great memories.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. I move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Trischetti, a second by Mr. Marquez. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. That passes 7-0. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, district presentations. Ms. Douglas, welcome to the podium.
Good evening, President Murray, Dr. Ramsey, Board of Trustees. Thank you for having me here tonight. Want to give an update on the health services situation with Midland ISD. As you've heard, the Delta variant is causing increased case rates across our community and across our state. So this graph gives you a visual depiction of our case counts so far to date in Midland ISD. And if you look at the August student bar, it already has eclipsed our highest number case count that we had in November of last year. That's with 2 weeks of school taking place so far. I will tell you that these numbers were pulled at 3:45 this afternoon. We've had since that time an additional 20 active student cases added to this and some additional staff numbers added to this also, to give you an idea of the rapidity of the case counts that we are dealing with, just like we're seeing in the wider community. As of 3:45 this afternoon, we had 93 staff members who tested positive and 326 students who had tested positive cumulatively, an additional 20 students since that 3:45 time. Our active case count right now, not the cumulative case count, but our active student case count right now is at 246.
246?
Yes, and that was as of probably an hour ago. I can tell you those numbers change moment to moment right now.
Right, but that's currently how many kids we have out
We have
for COVID.
Yes,
That
well, with
is
positive
not the
cases.
rolling total, because the rolling total sounds much worse, obviously, but kids are recovering and going back to class, too.
Kids
It's
are
worth
recovering and going back to class, yes, but these are our active positive cases, not students who are out on quarantine because of close contact exposure. So just to give a little bit of comparison, like I mentioned, November was our highest month on record so far, and we have already eclipsed that with our student totals. We have low vaccination rates in our community, and our students under 12 remain ineligible for vaccines at the moment. 97% of our student cases are unvaccinated. We have some breakthrough cases. They are far fewer than our unvaccinated cases with positive numbers. Due to executive orders, we cannot require masks in school. We are dealing with the Delta variant, which is more contagious and sometimes more severe than the original wild variant and the other variants that we've dealt with. So to help explain the dramatic change in numbers. As you're aware, our hospital capacity is decreased because they are contending with the same numbers, and they have a high number of inpatient COVID cases. That impacts us in several ways. Hospital capacity affects students who need to be admitted for any reasons, not just for COVID-related reasons. So if we have a student who fractures a femur, a student with a head injury, or a student with an asthma attack anywhere in our community, the likelihood of that student having to be transported to a state hospital, a hospital within the state boundaries, or possibly a hospital outside of state boundaries, that impacts our student health. Yes, sir. As of 3:45 this afternoon, we had 93 total, and I believe 37 were active cases. And as I mentioned, those numbers right now are changing moment to moment. So that was as of 3:45 this afternoon.
But it's clear, I'm not doing this math well probably in my head, okay. But if we have 246 active cases, and we have over 26,000 kids enrolled in MISD, that's hovering around less than 1% of our students that are currently affected. I'm not saying that this is not dramatic increase from last year. I'm willing to acknowledge that. But also I think it's worth talking about the other side of that, which is when you think about 246 kids out of 26,000, I wonder how many kids would just be sick on a normal day to begin with strep or flu or, that kind of stuff, if we were counting those in the classroom. It's just a different perspective, I guess.
Sure, and so to help illuminate some of that, I'm going to share some information with you about the Delta variant, because for each one of those 246 cases, we have to keep in mind how the Delta variant behaves, how contagious it is, how many people are available for it to infect, and particularly in our student numbers where they are ineligible for the vaccine at all, or they have chosen in the 12 and older population, they couldn't get vaccinated for some reason, or they have chosen, or their parents have chosen not to get them vaccinated. That's a wider opportunity for Delta to spread.
And maybe you're going to touch on this, but maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would like to know, if we can have this number, how many of the student population positive cases are in kids who can get the vaccine, because I feel like that there's more children who are getting it and I could be wrong, at the secondary level where the vaccine is available. Do you know those rough estimates of the elementary versus secondary, 12 and older versus lower?
I can pull those numbers for you. I can tell you that a percentage of our students who have tested positive are eligible for vaccination, in that they are 12 and older, and so those students are eligible for vaccination. Once they've tested COVID positive, at that very moment, we're not able to stop that process with them. So I can tell you that a large number are also elementary students, or students age 12 and under. So to help explain that rapid rise and rapid trajectory compared to where we were last year, the Delta variant is more contagious than previous strains. You guys are probably aware of this. It causes more infections and spreads quicker than earlier forms of COVID-19. Unvaccinated people are at the highest risk for this, period. Even if they had COVID back in the spring of last year, that natural immunity doesn't last as long as the vaccine immunity. We have seen some breakthrough cases, as you're aware. Typically, those patients don't require hospitalization or ICU intervention. So that's encouraging news, and the vaccine does help also limit the number of days that someone is able to effectively spread the virus to others. But you can see on this, the Delta variant, whereas the original wild virus that we saw initially, if for every infected person, they were likely to infect 2 other people, with the Delta variant, an infected person is likely to infect between 5 and 8 other people, particularly in circumstances where we're not having good layered mitigation pieces. We know physical distancing is a challenge in schools, and without consistent mask usage, that creates a circumstance where there are lots of opportunities for Delta to spread. We have put in place continued efforts to keep our students and staff healthy and physically present at school. As much as possible, we employ the layered mitigation measures, and the messaging from all of us as leadership has been that we highly encourage mask usage. We cannot mandate that right now due to the governor's order, so we are encouraging that and modeling that when we are around others. We are encouraging vaccination for all eligible individuals, and as always, we recommend that people touch base with their primary care provider or their private health care provider to explore their particular health circumstances. Vaccines are readily available in the community, and I would encourage anyone that has questions about vaccines to scan the QR code that's on our signs on the doors, or go to Midland Memorial's homepage, or DSHS. Just Google DSHS COVID-19 vaccine. It pulls up a lot of information and also has a list of locations where people can get the vaccine. We are issuing proximity notices now. So in a classroom where a positive COVID-19 case has taken place, parents get that notification. And with the understanding that Delta variant is widespread, anytime students are in a classroom, we, from an abundance of caution, want to notify those families so that they can monitor their student, quarantine them at home if they choose to do that by following the CDC recommendations to prevent spread. And if they opt to send their student to school during that time frame, we highly recommend that that student be in a mask the entire time they're on campus. We are seeing lots of spread between family units. You heard one of the speakers earlier tonight discuss that. It's not unusual to see it go through a family unit very quickly. Yes, sir.
I think there was a letter or an email sent out to parents if a student had tested positive for COVID, that those families or their class or their grade was notified. But to my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, but it was somewhere in the verbiage where it was saying something about some students, those students need to be quarantined. I think that's the way some parents took it. So we had kids that were missing, or students that were missing classes because of the fact they were referred to the CDC guidelines in that letter, that email was telling them to quarantine. And some parents didn't know if they was really supposed to quarantine or could they actually come back to school because they were in close contact.
Sure, and thank you for that question. The first letter that went out did encourage parents to self-quarantine their student. At the elementary level, those were sent out initially to grade levels in an effort to protect the privacy of the person who tested positive. And nurses and staff members were instructed that if a parent called and it was a student in that child's classroom, that we highly encourage them to self-quarantine. It was a letter that we almost immediately revised to help our parents and to help with the process. So those notices are now being sent out just to the classroom level. And in the wording, it says, we recommend that you monitor your student's health, follow the CDC guidelines for close contact, and notify your family physician or your provider if they develop symptoms, along with other instructions.
But,
yes.
I'm sorry, were you finished? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, what I was going to say about that is that limits the notification to the students who were in the classroom with the individual who tested positive. We realize that out of an abundance of caution, there's a high likelihood of exposure right now. I can tell you, for each individual going out in public right now, there's a high likelihood of exposure to the Delta variant.
That was you kind of led me to it. We are all living our lives right now.
Yes.
It's not just school where this is happening. And we are not contract tracing. That is in line with the TEI guidelines. And so the issue that I have with the letter that I have now received twice, I've received the first one and I've received the second one, it is unclear as a parent, and I have been on PTA threads on GroupMe trying to also help other people understand, it is unclear to the parent if we are not going to contract trace, which is, again, in line with the TEA, then when you get this notification and it says to follow the CDC guidelines, it's misleading in my opinion, because there's even at the class level. I think that we're not requiring quarantine at exposure at this point. I mean, is that fair to say it's not required and we don't know if your child came in? I know you're saying it's a high probability, but we are not actually going back like we did last year when you got the notification that there was a case on campus at the campus level, and then if you received a notification from the nurse, then we were asking you to stay home, and the guidance was, as you know, what we're familiar with now. I think the district needs to be more clear that it is parent discretion based on their child's symptoms, correct?
Well, I can share with you what the recommendations from our local health authorities are, and I understand that frustration with the classroom notification.
But it is choice, right? The recommendation, it's not a requirement.
We are not able to legally enforce quarantine.
Right.
So we refer parents to the CDC guidance, and I can tell you, anytime a student is in a classroom with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, due to the low use of masks in our school community right now, the likelihood of them having close contact or exposure that warrants a parent exploring quarantine and following CDC guidelines is very, very high.
But it is the parent's discretion.
It is absolutely.
And
at
that
this
is the
point,
thing that I
parent's
want
discretion.
the district, in my opinion, to take another look at, sharpen our pencil on the notification letter that's going out, because it is very vague as to whether or not it is a requirement or if it's a parent decision, because I feel very strongly that it should be parent discretion on the mask and on quarantine, that the people who can make the best decision for their child, because we also are counting absent this year. Last year, when you were in quarantine, we were allowed to count you present. Is that correct? And I may be wrong about that. But this year, when you miss, you're being counted as an absent.
That is correct. Students are absent. It can be an excused absence.
Right, but it is I understand that we're trying to keep kids in person and that there's a yin and a yang to this. There's personal responsibility, and then there's, what your family thinks is the right thing to do. I've also noticed that there's been information provided that the UK has seen a similar response as a country to the Delta variant, and that we're kind of on the same trajectory as a country, not just as a community. And there's reason to believe that this could go very quickly through, and that herd immunity would be reached hopefully with vaccine and the number of people who have gotten it. Do you think that the UK variant is a good way to measure where we might be headed?
While I'm hopeful that we will reach that point quickly, in order to have a truly effective community herd immunity, based on the best information we have, we would need a vaccination rate close to 70%, because the natural immunity, so far as we know, based on the best information we have to date, tells us that the natural immunity does not last as long as the vaccine immunity. And so the other thing that we are contending with is, while the virus is still replicating quickly and we have low vaccine rates, the risk of another variant occurring is there. So it's one of the things we need to consider as we move forward. I'm hopeful that this will be a quick process, and we have to consider what's taking place with our community healthcare resources, because even if it is a relatively quick process, when our hospital doesn't have bed capacity and we don't have the ability to care for our community members from a healthcare standpoint, that creates a domino effect for other healthcare outcomes.
I just have one, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's just up to the schools as to whether that piece of the puzzle with the hospital, I know that the schools and the teachers and the administration are doing everything that they can, but it's also the community at large that's going to have to participate.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's unfair, I guess, for us to feel the weight of all of this as if it's all us and, it's a whole community.
Absolutely. We all have a part to play in the prevention of the transmission of COVID-19, and we all have a part to play in ensuring that both our students and our staff members are able to be physically healthy and physically present in school, which is our goal throughout this entire process.
President Murray, if I may, another layer that we haven't discussed is MISD being the largest employer in town. And because we are, that also means that we're the parents of the students who are testing positive. And so we're kind of looking at it on both ends. Obviously, safety is our number one priority for both our students and our staff members, but we're also really looking closely at staffing levels and ensuring that we have the staff available to safely staff not just schools, but transportation, custodials, child nutrition services. And so those are all a part of our continued efforts as we look at increasing the layering of our mitigation strategies.
Yes, and to reiterate what Dr. Ramsey just said, for every student positive, I have 26,000 children, and each of those children have primary caregivers that are employed by our community. So whether or not we are able to mandate quarantine for close contact, if a student tests or when a student tests positive, we must keep them out of school until they meet the return criteria. So for every positive case, we have the impact to our community employers, and also many of our staff members are parents within MISD. So when they have a child who tests positive, that pulls the staff member and the student out of the campus. And we are being very intentional with our layered mitigation as much as we are able to, and with our testing on a case-by-case basis. We've performed over 500 tests per week over the past 2 weeks and have requested more testing kits from TEA and TDEM. As much as possible, we are trying to keep our staff and students healthy and physically present at school.
I've got a question if Ms. Joyner is finished. Oh, I said I've got a question if you're finished.
Oh, I'm finished.
So part of the question, part of it might be an opinion, but I'm not in the belief that, first of all, the governor has the right to dictate all safety measures for every citizen, especially under MISD umbrella. We're mandated by the state to oversee child abuse, food nutrition for children that don't get enough nutrition. So we're mandated by the state on so many levels on the safety and well-being of students, from behavior issues and so forth. So for the fact being that that just because the governor says that, he's mandating that there's no mask mandate, publicly I just want to say that I don't think that's correct, because we here at the local level, at the government level here, we're the ones responsible for the well-being of of every child and the student that comes to this MISD. So publicly, I want to say that to the Board of Trustees that, I would ask you to consider any measure that would help collectively that we can do to help out, because the fact that running the system and deteriorating it at its most precious resource, which is people, eventually the system's going to fall apart. And apparently, this has been a topic since last year, but the hospital people are doing their best they can to be as honest as they can with the public, and say, hey, listen, we're running out of resources, or could potentially run out of resources for a bed for you. I personally have talked to somebody in the Odessa hospital, and to hear the sad stories about how the people are crying at the end prior to getting intubated for the shot, and they're having to be told that the shot is not going to do them any good anymore. Intubation's coming. And it's sad that people don't realize that we're not talking about numbers. We're talking about a soul. We're talking about a human being in this world that could be affected. And at the end of the day, we're a country of choice and freedom, but freedom does come at a cost. Freedom does come at a cost. If you don't believe that, you had to ask the men and women that have served overseas and did not come back. Freedom does come at a cost. So at the end of the day, I would ask that, as we're going through this, our community, to be mindful of the fact that, we only have so many resources. We only have so many teachers. We only have so many bus drivers. And if the situation gets bad enough, people should ask themselves, how are we going to operate the system? Just the same way as the hospital is, I think, publicly coming out and saying, we only have so many respirators. We only have so many beds. Eventually that could run out. And, we could be in a situation that could be detrimental to our community again. So I know it was a sacrifice last time when we did it, but as a mask mandate, because we worked through it, the community went back to work. Life kind of resumed back to, not normal, but society as we know it, we're starting to move around again. But, it doesn't seem like there's a right answer for everyone these days in the sense of what to do, but at least there's a solution out there. There's a thing called a vaccine that's offered to people, and I'm publicly saying, encouraging people to go out and take it. Go out and take it. It's a solution. Scientists have proven it out. I'm sure I'll get an email or a comment saying, well, you don't know everything, and that's for a fact I don't. But the fact that there's people passing away and dying, and you can potentially prevent it by taking a vaccine, I'm on the side of the vaccine.
I appreciate your thoughts on that and your input. And again, as Trustee Joyner mentioned, and as Dr. Ramsey has mentioned before, we all have a role to play in this, in the prevention, in loving our neighbors, in the care of one another, and in sustaining our local economy, our local academic success, and the impact of this on our schools and our wider community. In consultation with our local health authorities, the recommendations continue to be layer mitigation efforts to minimize transition and variant risk, and there is great encouragement for universal masking in schools. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the Texas Pediatric Society, which is the Texas chapter of the AAP, urges everyone to take steps to safeguard children from surging COVID-19 infections. And in a letter that they sent encouraging everyone to use universal masking for schools in Texas, stated, "We must defend children by vaccinating everyone aged 12 and up who can receive the COVID-19 shot, and by urging mask wearing in schools to protect those who can't be vaccinated." That was put in place along with the Texas Public Health Commission as a recommendation to support universal masking in schools, which at this point in our state is prohibited for us to put in place as a requirement. So we have to model and encourage our staff members and our students to make that decision to do what helps protect them and their neighbors in this process. What other questions? Thank you all so much.
Ms. Douglas, I
Yes.
have a question. How old do you have to be to get the vaccine without parental consent?
You have to be 18 to get the vaccine without parental consent.
Okay.
So that's something to consider. And Midland Memorial is hosting vaccine clinics throughout the remainder of August, and they will continue to stand up vaccine opportunities throughout the community.
That was something that I asked, and I don't know if there's been any movement on that, but I know that we did some vaccination drives. Were they on campus earlier in the year, or are we going to provide that to families, that accessibility for the people that do want it? Is there any plans for that?
So I can tell you that we did stand up on-site vaccine clinics. Right now, we don't currently have any plans to do additional on-site vaccine clinics because Midland Memorial has been very active and has hosted vaccine clinics at their West Campus every Friday throughout August. And also, we have to be mindful of the demands that are being placed on our healthcare providers right now. We really, really want people to get vaccinated and avail themselves of the multiple opportunities that are present in our community right now.
I just didn't know if it would make it easier for our general population to get the vaccine if we were like a blood drive where you know it's going to be on campus a certain day and you get to come with your parent. Or anyway, just curious.
Of course, and right now I can tell you the answer right now is we don't have any future on-site vaccine clinics planned.
Thank you.
Are we able to give students vaccines at school or they have to have are we giving them, or are they having to have permission slip or?
So yes, thank you. In order for a student to get the vaccine, if they are under the age of 18, they must have a parent present with them. And we are not the vaccine providers. We worked in conjunction with Midland Memorial. And there are lots of steps to becoming a vaccine provider, and that is not something that we will be pursuing. Midland Memorial has an excellent resource and an excellent plan. We've worked with Unified Command to publicize vaccine clinics as much as possible. But for students who are 18 and under, they must have a parent present when they take them to get the vaccine.
So has that been a question that's been asked often lately from parents? Why don't you vaccinate my child here, and then we lead them to the resource at Midland Memorial?
We actually haven't heard that a lot lately. We were very, very proactive in providing on-site vaccine clinics. And as Russell Myers with Midland Memorial mentioned, we are at the place where there is ample opportunity in the community to get the vaccine, and people have to look at that and hopefully decide to protect themselves and their community members at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Douglas, thank you for being here tonight. I think you said it hit the nail right on the head. But tonight's our discussion was to let our community know where we stood as a district, let our teachers know where we stand, and talk about those students that can be vaccinated that haven't, because we want to walk in step with the community in the Midland Health that says we strongly recommend if you're able to get vaccinated, you get vaccinated. And if you can't or you will, we still recommend the mask. And so that's the point. That's where we're drawing the line right now with our administration, because that's as far as we can go. But we strongly recommend that those happen, and I appreciate you rephrasing that at the end to kind of draw the attention to that, because like you said, Mr. Marcus says the governor says no, and the Supreme Court upheld that yesterday. And so I personally am not willing to stick my arm up and say we're going to defy the government, because if I think we were, I think I would do it about Chapter 49 first. And so anyway, I appreciate you being here tonight and letting us know and letting the community know how important this is.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item on the agenda is item 6, district reports, and these are reports only. Item A, superintendent update. Item B, innovation update. Item C, financial update. And item D, staffing update. Board members, are there any of these reports you would like pulled for discussion tonight?
Yes, I'd like to pull the staffing update.
Okay, Mr. Bailey, I thought that might be an interesting point for you to come tonight, because we have talked about teaching classroom fill rates. And so, Ms. Joyner, is that what you're asking about?
Yes, I want to talk about our 99%, coverage, and maybe speak to some of the comments that Ms. Vasquez brought today in response.
Yes.
How we're kind of working towards the school year as we get going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we anticipated, of course, this is August and school started. We started earlier, 2 weeks earlier than usual, and that, of course, really did go into our hiring season. So it was shortened, and we are still, however, very proud of the work that our campuses and our administrators worked through those challenges this summer to make sure that we are able to staff as well as we are. The clicker here. Currently, this first slide talks about our enrollment as of snapshot, and of course last year we did experience a drop in enrollment and student enrollment. So at snapshot, which is the last Friday in October, we're at 24,554. When we looked at staffing projections for the upcoming year, it was 24,600 is where we really started to target for to start the school year. Good news, we're about 25,560. That was as of August the 6th, but that number continues to increase, and now we're over 26,000. And coming to the final two numbers here that were mentioned earlier, 92% of our classrooms are staffed with certified teachers. And so that specifically talks about our classrooms. We have 1,700 approximately classrooms in the school district, not counting also some of our special ed classrooms that add in addition to the actual count for students. They're staffed differently, and so we are 92% certified. And then when you look at the additional 7%, 8%, I tend not to say 100%, because I guarantee you, as soon as we say 100%, we're going to lose someone somewhere, because we have 3,000 employees and 1,700 classroom teachers. But 99%, we do have a tremendous number of teachers, and I say a tremendous, about 60 teachers that are not yet certified as well, because we started so early. A number of our staff were not fully hired on because they hadn't graduated from school yet in the summer. We're still having colleges and universities that are graduating. So we are proud of the numbers. Speaking specifically to the retention as well, if you look over the years, and these numbers speak for themselves, of course, in 2015, 2016, 378 was our retention, our turnover rate actually, which speaks to retention, and this year 375. And you can see 17, 18 was the year that we remember that was almost 500. So, of course, we have 3,000 total employees. What my world and what I look at statistics across the nation and in contact with many of our colleagues, it's the same issue that the Air Force, the air travel industry is experiencing, with shortage of staff. Restaurant industry is experiencing the same thing, and of course we operate several corporations within the school district. So I was listening to ABC News this morning, and they're talking about a national shortage for bus drivers. So our new transportation director, we hope that we can get some more bus drivers for him as well. So that number, of course, 99%, is really for classroom teachers, not specifically speaking to our entire workforce.
Real quick, so just so our public could be aware that, we had 2 years there, 2017-18 and 18-19. So the numbers were high there, but obviously looking back at that, just to reflect on that a bit, is that we had a boom cycle.
Absolutely.
We had the boom cycle, and during the boom cycle, people were going to act different than the pandemic cycle, not cycle, but in last year and in this year, and then you go back to 2015 and 16, and you can see that, and I'm sure if we go back through the boom cycles, we see the people leaving, and then because we have an inrush of kids, and then it slows down, and everybody doesn't want to go anywhere, and so I really appreciate. I'm sure the rest of the board does too, but that the job that y'all are doing to, find qualified people and work through the opportunities there are to advance people to come work for us in the educational field. So I really appreciate that.
So if we base our numbers on the snapshot, which was around 24,000,
Yes.
and we're currently at 26, how does that, are we having any overcrowding issues? How does that work in terms of like student-teacher ratio? Are we on par with where we should be?
Wonderful question, because that's exactly what, if you remember the conversation last year when we experienced the drop in enrollment.
Right, we were
automatically
overstaffed.
assumed if you were to basically get an average and say if we dropped 1,000 students, then that we ought to be able to recoup about 25, 30 teachers. Well, when you start really drilling down into the numbers, and we are looking at those, in fact, we look at them daily. We have another meeting tomorrow to discuss specifically about some changes or things that we need to maybe make some amendments throughout the district. However, when we look at all of the classrooms last week, and this was last Friday we specifically looked, there was one classroom at Yarborough Elementary, one grade level basically, that was at capacity. We have some that are on watch, and then of course some that are still under enrolled, so we still have some changes to make across the district. So we feel like we're in a good place, and that's why we go with that snapshot number, because it has proven over the last two hiring cycles that it really gets us in the best position to start school.
Okay, and it may be different for each grade level, so this may be a moot point, but can you give me a general idea of what the student-to-teacher ratio should be, especially like at the elementary level?
Absolutely. Kindergarten through second grade, 22-1. Third and fourth grade, 24-1. And 5th grade and above is 28-1. Okay. So 22, 24, and 28.
Mr. Woodrow, would you remind me real quick, now in the past, we've had to apply for a waiver, correct? And this year we're not applying for a waiver?
So under the District of Innovation exemptions that was approved as part of the innovation plan for the school district, that was one of the exemptions that was approved, and so we no longer have to submit those waivers. However, we abide by the staffing ratios that have been established.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Bailey, while you're there, if we will skip into item 7D for this discussion and action items. And while you're there, let's go ahead and cover B, if you will, and then we'll get to the academic update after that.
Okay.
I apologize for you guys putting you on the spot, but I thought since he's here.
No problem.
Mr. Bailey.
Well, once again, good evening, and of course we all hoped we're in a different position and that the pandemic was in our rearview mirror. However, tonight we're coming once again as this global pandemic has impacted each and every one of our lives, and it continues to impact our students and our staff. And as you discuss the options for the resolution tonight, I'm just here to provide some context of this journey that we've been on for the last 18 months. And if you look and turn attention to the slide, I did provide this in your packet this month. March the 16th, 2020, if you remember, we were finishing up spring break and made the decision to close campuses and go virtual. On March the 24th, there was a board-approved resolution that covered employee compensation, and due to COVID closure and school closures, to ensure that all of our employees continued to receive payment and their salary. On April the 20th, which was after the board resolution, the FFCRA, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, was passed. And then in December the 31st of 2020 is when it actually expired. So from March the 24th of 2020 to December 31st, 2020, there was a mandate, but it was not necessarily funded. It was required for employees over a certain threshold that we had to continue to pay our employees. However, the board had already decided that before that act was actually passed. Because the FFCRA expired on December the 31st of 2020, the board came back on January the 19th of 2020 and approved a second resolution which continued to ensure that all of our employees received salaries and compensation. The total cost for that resolution from the start, which is March, for all the employees that were out for COVID or for quarantine, for positive cases, up to that point, and actually to this point now, is $2.6 million. You can read the decimals down there. It's about roughly $2.6 million is what it cost from the beginning up to this present point. In March of 2020-21, we did receive some ESSER funds. And however, on June the 30th of 2021, the resolution that you passed in January expired. So on July 1st, our employees that tested positive or required quarantine no longer had any coverage, and they were required to use their own accrued leave. So at this point, I know that there's discussion tonight in regard to a resolution, but that gives you some perspective on where we've come from and where we are right now to August the 16th.
Mr. Bailey, can I ask one clarification question? I believe we had a budget meeting last week and we talked about this a little bit, but you just said, and I want to clarify a little bit, you just said this was not funded last year, but it was funded in the fact that the state paid us, they held our average daily attendance harmless, and so that we wouldn't lose funds while we suffered through COVID.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Absolutely.
So the state didn't give us direct funds, but they did cover us for the $2.6 million, because I want to make sure that we make that clear.
Yes.
Okay.
That was going to be my, so what you're saying.
And is that this was not out of our pocket, essentially, the 2.6?
It was.
It was, but
we paid it.
We were held harmless, and MISD, unlike other school districts, chose not to lay off any staff.
Right.
Retrained staff members so that they could assist in other areas, and so it was using the funds that we received last year based on the hold harmless that does not exist this year. And I think that's the difference, that there is no hold harmless this year. We will receive what our ADA is for this year.
But we had cover, essentially, last year.
But the hold harmless dealt with students, and the 2.6 was paid to staff, correct?
Correct. The hold harmless was how we were going to be funded instead of the extreme reduction in ADA across the state due to quarantine and positive cases. Yes, it was for staff, but that hold harmless does not exist anymore. So that is an important distinction for this school year. So wherever we are right now as far as attendance when we get to that date and whatever our percentage is, and for those that don't understand, we do not receive funds based on enrollment. We receive funds based on our average daily attendance. So if only 90% of students attend school, we receive 90% of what have been the allotment for enrollment.
But if the budget is approximate, let's say it's estimated to be the same. All of our hearts in the right place. We want to take care of the teachers.
Yes.
They're in the classrooms. They're teaching our kids. They get sick. They go home and have to quarantine for 14 days. I personally don't feel like they should have to burn all of their personally accrued time before. And so is there not a way to set aside some of those 37.9 ESSER funds to have a cushion there as we navigate this to see what comes out of, whether it's a home harmless, whether it flares up, what the governor does, what TEA does? It doesn't have to be the full 14 days, Mr. Bailey, but is there a way to set aside some dollars to say, hey, teachers, we know what you're doing, and so we're going to give you 5 of COVID.
And I would love to answer that question, Mr. Chischetti. I think our CFO that may have snuck up behind me might have a better understanding or allocation for. I know that ESSER funds are being utilized for other things to promote and to support, rather. So
Sure.
that's kind of out of my area, but
So while we have the entire amount of ESSER funds, keeping in mind that we don't receive that entire amount that's there, in addition, we have to meet the requirements of HB 4545. And so the plan that we have already provided to the state, which has been approved, does not include additional dollars for additional days. And I do want to clarify another point, just to be clear, that can you please, Mr. Bailey, speak to the leave that each employee receives on July 1?
yes. So each employee receives 5 state days, 5 local days, and 236 and 260 employees receive an additional 10 vacation days. And all of those days are included in the projected budget every year because, of course, you have to provide coverage for subs and that type of thing. So that vacation is already there. And, of course, last year, very few people were able to utilize that accrued leave. And it does become a liability going forward, even though because everyone will not take their vacation in the same year. So that's just a reality that, it does roll. State days and local days continue to accumulate. They do not terminate the end of the year.
And if I retire, I get paid for my state days, my local days?
Midland ISD does not pay for any of those days.
So if you're a teacher that's been with the district for a long time, you may have a lot of days accrued, and we may not need to worry about payment to this person at all.
Absolutely.
It's really probably going to affect our newer teachers who have less days accrued. We're also not necessarily, as we discussed earlier, quarantining our teachers for exposure. Right. That's up to them as well. And then last year we were for close contact. So do you think that the combination of the days that some people have accrued, combined with the fact that not all of our teachers have to quarantine, it's at their discretion, do you think that's going to offset the cost from what we saw last year? I just feel like there was more. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around if we think it's really going to be that 2.6.
Absolutely. It won't be the 2.6
okay,
with the current plan.
That's what I was just trying to clarify.
Absolutely not.
It'll be much less.
Yes.
Okay.
Daryl, do we know, Mr. Dodds, what that projection is? Do we have any idea?
What we're talking about? I know it's hard to estimate because we don't know.
Yes, and we don't know. I did take a look at how many days on average our staff does have. State days, on average, our staff has about 21 days throughout the whole district and about 11 local days throughout the district. So we know it will be less. There's just no way to know an estimated amount, what that would be as far as dollar-wise goes.
The motion is about us supporting a resolution to send to Austin.
No. So let me clarify what's on the table here. We have a resolution that the district's administration has proposed, which would provide up to 10 additional paid sick leave days for employees who test positive for COVID-19. However, in order to utilize those additional leave days, you have to use up and exhaust all of your accrued leave, which would include all your state, local, comp time, vacation, whatever. So this would apply for all employees across the district, and it would basically be a safeguard so that employees wouldn't go on leave without pay if they have to go out because they're COVID positive. It also wouldn't apply to staff members who choose to quarantine because they determine that they're a close contact, because we're not requiring
It's just
that
for
anymore.
COVID positive.
Only COVID positive, and only after you've exhausted all of your accrued leave.
How would it affect the bottom line if we were to say, if before you have to use all of your leave, we're going to give everybody in the district 5 days for COVID? I mean, I'm just curious, what would that look like? And then after, if you have 5 days are on us, and then you have to use your personal days, and then if it goes beyond that, we'll give you 5 more. But I'm just curious, because it maybe seems a little unfair that maybe you've been saving up your vacation days because you want to go to Europe,
Or
if we ever get to go there
Or
again.
you're going to have a baby and you're going to be out
Right.
for.
Well, that's a good question, and it's one I really don't have a direct answer to, because, I mean, you're looking at each day costs the district more depending on what you're doing. You know, a custodial would not be as much as you know, say the superintendent or whatever. So, I mean, we could come up with a number and get that to you, but right down at this time, I wouldn't
Right.
have that.
So let me step in. So this resolution has been approved by the Finance Committee. It came from the Finance Committee
Yes.
of approval. This is not the only step. This is the first step.
This is
Because
the first
what
step.
we wanted to do as a district is make sure our teachers aren't going without pay.
Right.
The next step is the superintendent, myself, and hopefully a representative from the local teachers union will send a letter, we'll draft a letter, we'll sign it, we'll send it to the commissioner saying we want this to be funded so that our teachers don't have to use their personal or state time. So this is not the only step, this is just the first step. We did need board approval to follow through with the second step.
Got it.
But and I'm for all that. I just would prefer us to front load guarantee it like we did the first time, as opposed to, while I appreciate there's going to be a hold harmless in effect for our teachers, they still have to burn through all their personal time to get to it. And if I vote against, it's not because I'm against the resolution or trying to protect teachers. I just don't think we're going quite far enough. I think we have the ability to do a little better. I don't know what that looks like, because Mr. Dodds and we don't have our mind wrapped around that yet. But I feel like that we should be able to front load that and give 5. I mean, it's a random number, but you know, you get 5 if you test positive for COVID, you get 5 COVID days before you dip into your. And then there's going to be a lot of teachers that never test positive, and so we don't have to burn that. We just feel like that we need to protect them on the front.
Let me propose this, that we let Mr. Dodds look into those numbers and get back to us so that we can have that discussion at another time. What I believe is we've all had this agenda for 7 days, and this was not posed to Mr. Dodds so that he could be ready tonight to have that discussion. And so I think it's unfair for him to come up with a guess on what that number should be.
I agree. It just dawned on me during the discussion that this could be an option. I wasn't trying to make a gotcha question.
You're fine.
It was just, as we discussed, I was realizing that maybe that option was on the table, but I know it's price dependent. And but I wouldn't want to hold up the resolution,
Yeah, no, me either.
President Murray, to delay it in the sense that if we need to get to that next step,
Well,
I'm
I think
all
this
for
is,
covering our teachers.
like President Murray said, this is the first step. We don't know where we're headed in the future, and we may get some guidance later on from TEA and from other organizations, but this does ensure that, and it's not just teachers, it's all employees have access to that 10 days once they've used their.
We're protecting.
So Mr. Marquez has made a motion, and so I've asked him to read the resolution. Oh, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Pounds, one question of clarification. I think that our prior resolution expired June 30th, 2021. So as of July 1, 2021, there was no special provision in place like we're considering now. I want to make sure, is this resolution, if passed, and I hope it passes, is it effective as of July 1? Because it's not in the resolution, its effective date. I want to make sure it's effective July 1, 2021, unless there's some reason we can't retroactively make it effective.
That was the intent, I believe, was to have it for the entire school year, and so it'll expire June 30th, 2022, but retroactively apply to July 1, 2022.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Marquez, will you read the, do you want to read the resolution? Do you have it up? You can read it off mine. Just,
He doesn't have to read the whole thing.
you don't have to read the whole thing.
No,
You can just
we can just
read
make
the motion.
All right. Motion to approve this resolution to provide COVID-19 related sick leave to all employees for the 21-22 school year.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bishop. Any other discussion? Sorry, I'm going in and out. Okay, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. Thank you. The motion passes 7-0. And we will look for you to provide us further detail about what 5 days might cost us in the future. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, going back to item 7A, is Dr. Queller. We welcome you to the district tonight, and you get to come right up front, right off the bat. So your item is academic update, board goals, goal 1, annual target, and CPM 1. Welcome, Dr. Queller.
Good evening, President Murray, members of the board, Dr. Ramsey. Thank you for having us here to provide our monthly update around the academic board goals. We actually have a wonderful presentation for you that's going to dive into board goal 1. I am joined here by my two amazing colleagues, Dr. Martinez and Mr. Garcia, who are also going to be sharing the podium with me and presenting out the board goal, the constraint, and also talking about next steps, and then we'll open it up for questions from the board. But without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Martinez, who will start us out.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Ramsey. I will report on goal 1. So as you know, according to recent studies, a person who is not at least modestly skilled reader by the 3rd grade is unlikely to graduate from high school. And many studies have been done over the last 40 years highlighting the differences between a high school dropout and a graduate. These differences can be identified as early as the 3rd grade, with implications for unemployment, poverty, and even incarceration. Aligned with this reality and this need, Board Goal 1 is written to measure 2nd grade end-of-year student reading proficiency outcomes. Yearly targets set for the 2021 school year indicate that Midland ISD did meet the annual target goal set for goal number 1 and is on track to attain the final target outlined in goal by August 2023. As a district, the 2021 yearly target of 66% was achieved and surpassed as measured through iStation, indicating that 67% of 2nd grade students are reading on or above grade level. Regarding constraint 1, after completing the initial 3-year phase in professional learning communities, or PLCs, in 2017-2018, the scope of the work continues to focus on depth and complexity of implementation, as well as bringing new team members up to standard. In respect to this constraint measures, we are using the PLC implementation rubric to measure implementation of PLCs. This rubric has 5 elements: collaborative culture, guaranteed curriculum, common assessments, ensuring learning, and enriching learning. These 5 elements are measured by each team on a scale from learning, literal, refinement, and internalized. All campus teams completed an early fall self-evaluation as well as a spring self-evaluation, followed by a principal confirmation that the evaluations were aligned as evidence as outlined in the rubric. During the spring of 2021, our data shows that 93% of our campuses ended the school year, from the data collected obviously in May 2021, at a refinement or internalized levels in all 5 elements, or at least showed at least 1 level of growth between fall and spring. This is compared to 91% of our campus teams evaluated and reported in the spring of 2020 through the March 6, 2020 timeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez, Board President Murray, School Board Trustees, and Dr. Ramsey. I am thrilled that we met our goals, but now I'm going to talk about our next steps and how we're going to surpass our goals. Our next steps will be to ensure that we align our actions and commitments to achieve our board goal and constraint. We have already trained our instructional leaders on the beginning of the year MAP growth assessment, an assessment that is not only adaptive, but it is predictive of how our student will perform on the state assessment. The district and campuses will analyze this data and identify concepts with which students are struggling in order to prioritize and implement instructional strategies to address gaps in learning. In addition, each campus will provide accelerated instruction for students who did not pass the STAR exam, to include pre-planned intersessional weeks where students who are behind academically can receive additional instruction to support those learning gaps. All campuses will be trained on the professional learning communities to support a collaborative commitment to analyze and impact professional practice for the sole reason to improve our individual and collective results. The PLC model will be used and reinforced throughout the school year, and professional learning communities will judge their effectiveness on the basis of results. Working together to improve student achievement will be the work of everyone in our schools. Dr. Quare?
Sorry, I'll wait.
Thank you. And to reiterate also, we heard in the presentation last month an overview around the Learning, Leading, Innovation team and what is the core role of our division. And really just to reiterate all of these wonderful next steps, but our core role is to ensure that we are supporting all of our schools, principals, and teachers and staff in this really incredible work. As we are in schools, as much as we can be, we are making it a point to make sure that we are professionally supporting all of our staff members through all of this incredible work. We're walking through classrooms, we're seeing amazing things that are going on for our children. Our principals are working extremely hard. We have been engaged in incredible professional developments and trainings that our principals have been giving us positive feedback on, and it's been amazing to be a part of this as school has already started just in 2 weeks. And so with that being said, we're doing some amazing things already at the beginning of the school year and more wonderful things to come. But I'll go ahead and tee it up for questions from the board if you have any.
I got a comment, maybe a question at the same time here, but I think maybe some of the board members here can remind me, but I think the PLC was started prior to me joining the board, and we didn't have obviously the progress that you're showing today, and so when people look at this number, they might say, well, it might have been set too low, but there's been a lot of work to get to this point. So I want to say congratulations to our superintendent, the staff, leadership, that everyone else that's put that work into getting us here. And I want to make note that even though it's from 91 to 94 and we're at 93, that there's been a lot of work to get there. So with that said, how do we see that maintaining, so it doesn't fall short, I guess, in a sense, or go back down? We have the slump again.
That's a good question, and you're right. It takes an enormous amount of work to be able to achieve that particular type of result. And I also want to give kudos and celebration to all of our schools too that have taken on that commitment and charge in being able to do that. It takes a lot of collective muscle from a school community to be able to put together a very tight professional learning community structure in each of our buildings. You have our commitment that. Even though the numbers are on an upward trajectory, our commitment is to ensure that we get to 100. And we want to continue the training. We want to continue our workshops and working closely with principals and ensuring that we don't have any regression in that regard. The PLC is a very important initiative to the school district. And we want to ensure that we continue to have our foot on the accelerator in that regard.
The other comment I want to make is that when I joined the board, we went to the Lone Star governance, and I've said it over and over, but it's one of the most important tools I've seen, in a major. I don't want to use the wrong word, but infrastructure in the sense of what a school is. It's a community. It's education. It's a lot, and when we brought our community on board initially, it was a lot of people didn't understand what that Lone Star governance was and how we were setting goals. So it's very exciting as a board member to see for us to reach a goal after we've worked so many years to have set it, first of all. And so a lot of communities, I think, have learned. Hopefully we've been some light to someone else, another school district, showing that by setting goals, even though there's potentially hard times and up and downs, that eventually you could reach, you could surpass them or reach them or surpass them. So it's a very exciting news, and I'm hoping that we can, as a board, continue to support the work that's needed to reach those goals.
Have we moved completely away from iStation and are using MAP exclusively? I see a nod head.
Yes, sir.
So if that is the case, then how are we tracking that progress if our first 2 years, if we started with our tracking in iStation and now, is that a true apples to apples?
I'll go ahead and take this one. We're waiting for the beginning of the year assessment in MAP, and then we're going to regroup as a governance team of 8 to talk about our goals and to look at where we started with NWA MAP, how it works out. And the goals themselves aren't actually explicit about what assessment is used, but we want to make sure that we're making progress and that MAP doesn't come in like above where our goal is, and then we just
right. I just wanted to make sure that we have some room to adjust, since we're not switching horses midstream, but certainly making a significant adjustment about how we track our elementary kids' literacy levels.
Yes,
absolutely. That's a really good question, and to expand on superintendents. And we've already started training already with our principals and staffs, around MAP, and we're also going to be able to we're going to be administering MAP in multiple times throughout the course of the year. So we will actually be able to have some of those apple-to-apple comparisons as we start to make some adjustments throughout the course of the year in instruction. MAP is good because it's a growth-based tool that's going to help inform all of our instructors in terms of where our students are at real time and how we can make adjustments and be able to pivot based off of where the real-time results are. So I'm excited about it. I've actually worked with MAP in several past districts, so I have experience in working with MAP, and again, it's also it's a really good tool if we know how to make it action-driven and outcome-driven for kids. But I'm excited about it.
I'd make the motion to approve information submitted in the academic update for Board Goal 1 and Constraint 1.
We have a motion by Mr. Trischetti, a second by Mr. Booker. Any other discussion? One question I want to ask Dr. Ramsey. You mentioned we're waiting on MAP for the beginning of year test. When will that start?
I'm deferring to the team.
And I'll ask you, this is for personal reasons, just because I have a teacher that's a math teacher, and she's like, my TIA, is that what's called, TIA?
Yes, sir.
Is being based on growth, and if I'm already teaching, they're already ahead of their BOY, so that's why I asked.
Right, we're looking at about a 2 to 2.5 week window, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Queller and team,
so much,
for
Board.
presenting to us tonight.
Quarterly report.
The next item on the agenda is item 7C, Lone Star Governance Board Self-Evaluation. And as is normal, unless there's an objection, we will use the norm for the group. And if there's anything that wants to be called out, then we will discuss it at that point. But on And what I'm looking at for the quarterly progress tracker for the quarter we just finished, I see 5 12s, so 12 would be the consensus. On Vision 2, we have 7 12s, so we will select 12. Item Vision 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 9s. On Vision 4, we have 6 4s. On Accountability 1, we have 6 4s. On Accountability 2, the majority looks to be 6 2s. Structure, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 4s, and we have 1 on each side of that, so 4 would be the consensus. Advocacy seems to be 5 1s, and we have 1 on each side. And unity appears to be 6 9s. 24, 33, 37, 41, 42, 43, 47, 48, 57 is what I add up to.
I'm going to trust you.
On any discussions about that before we move forward? Okay, on next quarter's goal, we have 15, 15 on Vision 2, 10 on Vision 3, 5 on Vision 4. Man, we're good at this point. 12 on Accountability 1, 5 on Accountability 2. Structure looks to be a 4. Advocacy, there are 4 3s. And unity appears to be all 10s. 30, 40, 45, 47, 57, 62, 79 by Mr. Davis, and I'm going to agree with that. That way I don't have to add it. Any discussion about that?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Trischetti makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marquez. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. It's unanimous, 7-0. Thank you, Board. 7-11. Okay, the time is now 7:11, and the Board will move into executive session under Government Code Section 551071 for the purpose of private consultation with the Board's attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and any all subject matters authorized by the law. Consultation with the attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation in the matter of a student versus Midland Independent School District, Texas Education Agency docket number 089-DM0721, and employee versus Midland Independent School District, EEOC charge number 846-2021-02085. Section 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, and 551.074 for the superintendent evaluation. There will be business after we return from executive session, and I want to let you know that, but as of right now, we are adjourned for executive session. Thank you. The board is now returning from recess. The time is 9:55. And the actions arising from closed session, item 9A, discussion and possible action regarding the pending contemplated litigation, student versus Midland Independent School District, Texas Education Agency document number 089-DM-0721. Board, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to resolve this matter, student versus Midland Independent School District, Texas Education Agency, docket number 089-DM-0721, pursuant to the terms discussed in closed session, and further authorize the superintendent to execute all documents concerning resolution of this matter.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Joyner, a second by Mr. Trischetti. Any other discussion? Sorry. All in favor, please show by raising your right hand. Thank you. It's unanimous. Item 9B, discussion and possible action regarding pending contemplated litigation, employee versus Midland Independent School District, EEOC, charge number 846-2021-02085. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to resolve this matter. Employee versus Midland Independent School District, EEOC, charge number 846-2021-02085, pursuant to the terms discussed in closed session, and further authorize the superintendent to execute all documents concerning resolution of this matter.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 9C, discussion and possible action to approve 2021-2022 Midland ISD Board Operating Procedures. Do I hear a motion?
A motion. I move that the board approve the 2021-22 Midland ISD Board Operating Procedures.
A motion by Mr. Booker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marquez. Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 9D, teacher contract abandonment, D. Toscano. 1, good cause did not exist for resignation, and 2, complaint and request for sanction to TEA. Board, do I have a motion?
I move that the board has determined good cause did not exist for teacher D. Toscano to abandon his contract, and the board authorizes the district to file a complaint with the State Board for Educator Certification.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Booker. Any further discussion? All in favor, please show by raising your right hand. Thank you. It's unanimous. Last item, 9E, discussion and possible action to extend the term of the superintendent's contract.
I move that the board approve the superintendent's evaluation as discussed in closed session and agrees to extend the term of the superintendent, Dr. Angelica Ramsey's contract to the end date of July 31st, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Trischetti, a second by Mr. Bishop. Any discussion?
Just like to know, let Dr. Ramsey know that I appreciated the work that's been before us the last 5 months, the team that she's put together to bring success to the district academically as well as showing rapport in the community and along with our teachers as she visits the campuses and be a part of the community as far as being on committees, PTAs, if you will, Boy Scouts, Hips Training, Chamber of Commerce, those type of behaviors. So I appreciate what you're doing there.
I agree, and I think by way of further explanation, that I think your contract began March 1st or February 27th. And so, but for this extension, it would have expired February 26, 2024, in the middle of a school year. We like what we've seen thus far very much, and so it makes sense to extend the contract with a beginning date of August 1st, so that each year for the next 3 years we'll be able to evaluate your performance based on the academic performance data and other criteria we may consider, which should be in our hands prior to that July 31st evaluation date. So we're going to get it in sync with the school district to evaluate you on each school year as the data becomes available.
Mr. Marquez?
I'm going to say something in Spanish just because the audience, but me da un orgullo de, ha sido uno de los miembros de la mesa directiva de traer a la doctora Angelica Ramsey aquí a la Midland ISD para servir a los estudiantes. Se me hace que el trabajo que ha hecho es muy bueno en la cuestión que lleva el distrito adelante a una forma que el beneficio es para todos. Y me gustaría que la comunidad, pues que nos la vea, le dé esas gracias que está trabajando por cada uno de ustedes. I don't know if you want me to repeat that in English or not. I'll repeat it real quick. I just want to say that I'm very proud, and I'm very proud that I'm one of the board of members and the board of trustees that have brought Angelica Ramsey here, and Dr. Angelica Ramsey, and that as the work she's doing is going to benefit each student in MISD, and that if you see her, please congratulate her on the work that she's doing to improve this district. That's it.
All right, I would just like to agree with everything that was said up here, especially the Spanish part. And but I also would just like to say that I have been so happy to work with you. It's been an honor for 5 months, and look forward to the next 3 years as we begin to turn the mindset of MISD and student outcomes into one of being exceptional where we would like to be. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. The time is now 10:02, and we are adjourned.